Thank you everybody for coming. As you know, we're going to be discussing cliché photography in the outdoor space, and I guess I'll just start by introducing myself. I'm Graham Heemstra. I run a website called The Field. It's fieldmag.com. We're based in New York, and I'll let these guys introduce themselves.
Hey, my name is Mackenzie Duncan. My Instagram's The Mackenzie Life. I'm from Victoria, west coast of Canada, and I guess I've been shooting professionally, not Instagram-wise, for about 10 years. It's been my career in commercial advertising photography.
Hi, I'm Louisa from Portland, Oregon. I have not been shooting photography professionally ever. I have been shooting photos on my iPhone since 2006. And I have an Instagram account called You Did Not Sleep There.
My name's Andrew. I live in Seattle, and I've been shooting photos for about 6 years and professionally for about 3. So.
Awesome. So, kind of the whole genesis of this conversation that we're hoping to have was just paying attention to Instagram and sort of digital marketing and brand marketing and things, and noticing certain images coming up over and over again. And these are those images like a lit up tent, a starry night sky with a guy with a headlamp, an individual in a bright coat at the end of a long cliff staring off into oblivion. And there's just so curious about this, what it is that has made these images start popping up more and more, and why they seem to draw attention and why we inherently like them, and then just wanting to create a conversation around that. So I think everyone probably has a good idea of what these things are, but to start it off, I was just hoping to kind of ask each of the panelists what the best offenses are in sort of outdoor photography. But before we get to that, I just want to make it very clear that this is all just for fun, and anything that gets people outdoors and doing things creatively is great. So we may be dogging on some techniques or some forms of photography, but at the end of the day, it's all good and it's all positive. That said, let's just start and have a good laugh, and see if we can all name some things that folks in the audience will also relate to, and then we can build from there.
Sunsets.
Mackenzie, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I went to the washroom and I came back and I was the only one left.
For all the Americans here, that's the bathroom.
Oh yeah, sorry. 2 Canadians here. I know, I realized that the other day. I guess I spent a lot of time cruising around in my van, which is also a cliche. So the cliche photo is sort of the feet or laying in the back of the van, looking out of the back doors of the van. Looks all pristine and clean, but often there's a big parking lot on either side of you and a whole bunch of crap everywhere else. But you frame that out, so that would be my big offender.
It's a good one.
I think you kind of want it. I mean,
Louisa?
right now
This is sort of your realm.
Which is funny. I guess, yeah, I think the ones that catch my eye all the time are obviously the tents in stupid places where you can't sleep. People do that. I feel like it's gotten better though. I'm not gonna give myself all the credit for that, but maybe. Tents and hammocks in weird places. For me, putting the light in the tent for the photo to make it stand out at night and stuff, that seems to be really popular. And
Never seen it. Never seen it.
Have you heard of Instagram?
Quiet in the back, please.
Definitely for me, I see just cabins and trends like that, A-frame cabins. Yeah, a lot of the van stuff has become a trend lately, but I think the biggest trends that bug me are when someone goes to locations and then everyone just flocks there. Example would be Peru. Someone went there, Stroll went there recently, and now all the kids are going to Peru taking the same shots. So I say that's the biggest offender for me for cliches.
Interesting. I think we'll hopefully get to that and build on that in a little bit.
We will.
Yeah, we definitely will.
Should we all go
Stay
to Peru
tuned.
after this?
Yeah. Yeah, this is actually sponsored by the Peru Tourism Board.
Use code Andrew T. Kearns to get 15% off your next trip.
So I was actually hoping, Andrew, for you to talk a little bit more about, you have been on Instagram for a very long time and have built quite a substantial following. I was hoping you could maybe talk a little bit more of how when you first started out on Instagram, you were in the Pacific Northwest, and you had mentioned that maybe you had some ideas of, these different vibes that you were trying to capture, and you had ideas that you were trying to go after, and then maybe there was a moment where you reached a substantial enough following where you decided, now is the time for me to strictly follow my sort of creative, direction, rather than having these ideas that I need to follow.
Yeah. I could literally talk on this one subject for hours, but I'll kind of keep it brief. So yeah, back in January 2015, I quit my job to pursue a certain degree in or a certain job in graphic design that my friend owned a company. In that time, I also discovered how I met someone who's a friend today who was just utilizing Instagram, and he was a senior in high school and making money off of it. He didn't have to go get a job, and he was making money off these sponsored posts, and I was like, what the hell, that's so rad. You're a junior in high school and you're making more money than all your friends and you're doing what you love. So I kind of started that transition to I did photos for 3 years prior, just having fun with it. And being from Washington, from the PNW, it was such a trendy place at the time. It's early 2015. Everyone wanted to go out, shoot the foggy trees, shoot all this stuff, and the people in the cool brim hats, and that was the thing back then. And as I was around that all the time, that's kind of what happened, and I started shooting that stuff a ton. And because really I just didn't know any different, really, because you just I essentially grew up in my photography career only knowing that. So time goes on, 2015 passes by, 2016, I'm I think I had 300-ish thousand at the time followers, and is that the hawk? That's sick. I thought it was Santa's sleigh.
Anyone get a picture of that?
Yeah. And so all my work and all that point up to this point of October of last year had been mostly just social media jobs, promo posts, ads on my Instagram. And then out of nowhere, I get this huge job that had nothing to do with Instagram. It was 10 times more pay than I'd ever gotten from any other job, and it was valued off my work versus my number. And I was like, holy crap, all of a sudden, the way I pictured Instagram, if this is the big bubble of realm of photography and stuff, Instagram was right here. It really put into perspective how small of a bubble Instagram actually is. And so on top of that, I got another job at the exact same company that was even bigger, and I was like, dang. And so it was really like a punch to the face of realize how much more is out there. So since really November of last year, 2016 up until now, it's been kind of just been gearing away from that and making that switch to something that's not so temporary. Because you look at stuff like Vine, MySpace, and stuff like that. Vine had 3.5 years in it, and it's the same exact concept as Instagram. It's not gonna last long forever. The time of PNW being trendy is kind of over, and now Hawaii or certain other places are trendy. Trends come and go, and same with Vine and apps like that, they come and go. So if you put all your eggs in one basket, and that basket be Instagram, your time's limited, and that was the realization for me. And so as I'm very business minded too about it all. So as a business person and an artist, I want to be progressing. And if I just sit there and milk my Instagram career for 4 years, and then after 4 years, I'm well, shit, I don't, what do I have left, So it's really, if I just fell in the same trends as everyone else, I would just fade away like everyone else, So that's been kind of the realization over the past year almost. Yeah, did that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm curious about, in the very beginning, before you had such a substantial following, were you shooting those A-frames? Were you shooting, the people in the brimmed hats? And you had, before you sort of realized that there was, a more unique direction to take, did you find yourself, not necessarily copycatting, but, having an idea of exactly the image you wanted to produce because you had seen someone you look up to doing that?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I'm definitely inspired and influenced by a lot of other people. And I definitely partook in like, oh, that person went there, like I want to do that. But like, as I thought about it more and more, and over time, and even before that job hit, I was just starting to question a lot. I was like, how does this make me stand out at all? And it doesn't. Like, if you go to Peru and take that same shot as Stroll, like, congrats. Like, you just copycatted someone else's creativity. And how does that look to a client? How does that look to, people who look up to you as an artist? Like, yeah.
Yeah. Well, one thing I've been thinking about this, obviously, for a while now, especially with the pressure of being in front of everyone, is, early on when you were getting your start and before sort of recognizing that there was different approaches to take, now there are so many more people on Instagram and there are so many more substantial influences. So my question is, are a lot of the people that are shooting these, quote, cliche photos, maybe they're younger and they're not established yet and they haven't quite figured out their creative vision? And so can you necessarily fault them for having an idea and seeing a photo that performs and then wanting to create that? And is it just the fact that there is so many more people on Instagram that it has become more noticeable? Is that something either of you guys think?
Yeah. I guess, like, for me, it kind of, like, I feel like photography has become so much more accessible for people. And, like, back then, like, when Instagram came out, everyone was shooting, like, train track iPhone photos, And now, like, if you don't start with, like, a 6D and a 24-70 Mark II and you drop 2500 on that, like, you're behind from a standpoint. Like, I don't agree with that at all. Like, I love shooting with my iPhone still. But, like, it's really been saturated so much. And I guess my viewpoint on it is, as you start anything, like you start at square one, you are inspired by X person because they do this work and you're like, dang, I really love their work. So you do copy their work to an extent, but like if you just keep copying your work, like you plateau as an artist. But if you copy their work, or if you are inspired by their work and make it really your own as an artist and as a business person who's trying to get clientele, you're putting yourself out there as someone who's more unique than just all the kids doing the same thing, So it's really, like I said, I look at this from much more like an artistic and development standpoint rather than just like reeling in engagement and likes and stuff like that. Like, that's not the goal because that's so temporary. But I think as an artist and someone who's getting into photography, like you were saying, it's important to be inspired by that, but not to stay stuck in the copying phase, to go beyond and really push your creativity to the next level, to go beyond what you've been doing. It's just about progression, really. Like,
definitely. Yeah. At the same time, though, for a lot of people, it is about likes and it is about growing their following. And so my question is, it's very easy to identify these things and to make fun of them. And it can be a lot of fun. But is there positive to it? Is it a way for young photographers to create content that they, assuming will perform well? Is there a way to sort of game the system to then use it to your advantage and grow an audience that way by creating content that, you think people will absolutely engage with? Mackenzie, what do you think about that?
I think Andrew kind of nailed it. Is in any creative realm, you use inspiration of people who've already taken that path. And I think in photography, as long as you use it to improve yourself as an artist and then transition out of that into your own space, I think it's fine. It's when you stay in that realm of just riffing off of other people's stuff that it becomes a problem.
I have a question for you guys. Do you find that you've noticed people copycatting you?
Yeah.
I've noticed people copycatting him as well. I noticed it so I came sort of into photography through assisting in the commercial world. And there was a lot of you would find a photographer you liked, and I would do that, and I would copy their work or try and recreate it from a technical standpoint to learn from. And you're always kind of trying to find your look or your sound if you're a musician. And I spent a lot of time in my early photo years copying and learning and recreating lighting and using the same sort of look and treatment. And then as I grew out of that, that was perfect. But I think that's kind of the natural progression. So I'm sure people have copied my work over the years on Instagram or commercially or any of that stuff.
Mm-hmm. So then, kind of going beyond the aesthetics of this, I'm curious about what the physical impact of these. Andrew, you mentioned the idea of a physical place trending, not necessarily a photo. You know, we've all seen the feet over Horseshoe Bend. Is that... And you have probably taken that photo.
Actually, I put my camera away when I went there, so...
Oh, well.
Thanks, Grant. Graham.
Well, you're better than some of us. So I just want to talk about, and this is an interesting thing, is Louisa, with You Did Not Sleep There, an unexpected phenomenon that has come out of your Instagram account has been the conversation in the comments with people really drawing attention to the total disregard for Leave No Trace and the outdoor ethics by flocking to these places and setting up a tent right next to water, you know, versus obeying, you know, the distance limit and doing these things. And so I was hoping maybe we could just talk a moment about beyond the aesthetics, but the actual physical outdoor impact of places trending and people trying to create these images and not necessarily going and then finding an image where they're going.
Can I also say there's a positive spin to that of people, I'm going to tie it into van life and tiny houses, that trend of people wanting that to be trendy is part of the inroad to that, but I also think that creates a positive impact of living a smaller life. So, and that's less location based, but I guess still a similar thing. I think there's a lot of miseducation in terms of how you treat the outdoors. And when those particular places blow up in popularity, it's a huge issue.
Yeah, I think the thing that got me was like when I started posting all these photos and calling people out and whatever, and people, you know, kind of got butthurt about it and, you know, were trying to explain themselves, and someone in particular was like, hey, like, just so you know, this is all for my job.
Who was this?
He shall remain nameless. This is for my job, and we have permits to do all this stuff, and it's a commercial shoot, and blah, 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 blah. And yeah, we didn't sleep there, but it's for the photo. And that's cool, like, glad he has permits, and that's the thing, but it's, no one is, like, forward-facing about that. No one says that, and I think the problem lies, and I agree that there's for sure a positive spin on it, but where the problem for me is, and the problem for people that like to comment, is that no one talks about that. So the copycats think that it's real, or the kids think that it's real, or the people who are just trying to get into going outside think that it's real, and then they go and do it.
I also think either way, whether you have permits or not, you're setting a very bad example, right? If someone who has that type of following and impact.
Yeah, and it's like I just want them to start talking about it.
And authenticity, right? You're creating an image that people think is authentic when it really isn't authentic.
Yeah, I agree too, because before I was aiming my Instagram to do more commercial and commission work, and I was doing like, hey, look at me, I'm an Instagrammer. Like, you have to value what people see you as, and if you're kind of like doing stuff like that, like setting your tent like closer than 100 feet to water, and, you know, lighting fires when there's a fire ban, like all this stuff, like how does that look on you, you know? And like, you know, people will do it for the likes and like all this like really temporary stuff, but like in the big picture, like you look like a jerk. Like you're breaking the law, you're setting a terrible example. So I get pretty fed up when I see people like doing that. Like I really like what you're doing with You Did Not Sleep There, because it brings a lot of awareness to that. And like, as there's these people with these online personalities and these influencer people, you have a job to do, you have an example to set, and like I think a lot of people don't take it as seriously as they should, and it really gives people who are trying to do good and trying to, like, you know, get people outside and all that a bad name because, you know, some bimbo lit a fire during a fire ban and started a forest fire, you know, stuff like that. Like, you have
and I do feel like more and more of the people that I'm noticing are taking those types of photos are getting younger.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like big time.
Yeah, like 16.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like they run after school to go make a fire off a highway too, you know, stuff like that. Like I see it all the time. Like it's crazy. Like you actually really didn't camp there. You didn't use that fire for warmth. Like you just did it for the photo. And like, what's that worth in the end, in the big picture, you know?
Lots of likes.
Yeah.
Well, that brings up another thing that I'm curious about is, you know, it's sort of in human nature to want to be liked, to want to be part of the tribe, and to want to, you know, have approval from your peers. And with the recent changes in recent years with Instagram's algorithm, that has connected a really kind of unique perspective on this, because, and that's really where the perpetuation comes through, is if you're, you know, an Instagrammer, you're a photographer, and you're trying to build your audience, and you put out something that you're creatively interested in, but it's maybe not exactly in line with what you're normally doing. Let's say that doesn't get the immediate attention, the engagement, the algorithms then push it farther down, and you don't personally feel that feedback. You know that you can post an image of your feet hanging out the back of your van, and then you post that, the algorithms push it through, it gets more engagement, and you physically get that positive reaction to that. And so, you know, Andrew, someone like yourself that has a substantial following, that seems like that's not going to disappear if you start just posting crazy shit. You know, I still have the question, do you pay attention to the way that a photo performs, and does that influence the way that you continue posting?
I also have that question.
Cool. Yeah, so I mean, as I'm trying to transition from more of a social world to a commercial, like, commission world, like, yeah, I do value, like, photos that perform well and stuff like that, but also, like, over this past year of kind of switching it, like, I've been, like, it's kind of crazy how it works, because if you aim your, like, and also just, I look at this a lot more businessy than most people, too, so pardon me if I'm saying stuff you're not interested in at all, but basically, like, if you start posting, you know, the work you want to get, and you do it consistently, and who cares if it gets like all these likes and all this stuff, like, clients will notice that, etc., and that's the kind of work I've been getting hit up for, you know, like, I've been getting, like, this month especially has been a lot of, or like this year especially has been a lot of nothing to do with social media jobs, and it's like, you know, like, sure, it gets half my engagement as it used to be, but, like, I'm getting the jobs that have nothing to do with social media, and that says something, you know, like, who cares if my likes are in half? Like, I'm getting jobs that, you know, doesn't have to be posted on my Instagram, and that's pretty tight. Like I don't want to be an influencer my whole life. Like, if that's the end goal, then I have about 4 years left, you know, like, that's, yeah.
And Mackenzie, you coming from the commercial world, is that something that drives, I mean, a lot of your commercial work is, you know, fashion, shooting, editorial as well, and your Instagram work tends to be quite a bit different.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about that?
I think it's kind of why you post. So you started posting because you saw your friend was making money, so you went at that, and obviously as an artist still, but probably with the intention of monetizing it in some way.
Yeah.
And I started, well, Instagram wasn't even around for the most of my career, and I started wanting to go after jobs. So when commercial jobs. So when I started on Instagram, it was photos of the coffee I was drinking, or wherever I was sitting at the time with my iPhone. Yeah, it was very original.
Were your legs in the shot too?
Maybe probably a few of them.
Did you sleep there?
I did sleep there most of the time.
Was there a Kinfolk magazine on the table?
There was probably some of that. And then over time, it's now transitioned to, and this kind of ties into of people who will go and set up a fire or a tent just to take a photo of it. But for me, I'm just out with my friends surfing or going on a van trip, and very authentically just capturing a few photos of it. And I generally don't shoot that many photos because it's work still for me, and I'm often on set for a long time, and then these trips are more a personal way to enjoy myself. So I think I go at it because I do still enjoy taking photos and for the memories of it, but a lot of people go at it with the intention of building an audience. So I've never really thought that hard about my Instagram. I like to post pictures with my friends and of what I'm doing, mostly so my friends can see it and, I don't know, come on adventures, or I've met some really amazing people. I'm here because of my Instagram, essentially. So I think it's nice to, I'm also a huge social media hater. So I like that now.
Glad you're on the panel. Right?
Yeah. So now I really like that it's taken the step from just posting stuff and showing stuff online and everyone kind of bragging about how cool their life is to now coming back to an actual physical reality where I connect with other humans who are interested in surfing or vans or photography. And I think that's the positive outcome of maybe not caring about your Instagram, because it's more authentic as opposed to posting photos just to get likes or to lead to clients or to do that.
But by saying you don't care, that's not actually true.
Well, yeah, no, yeah, you're right. I don't mean I don't care. I mean I'm not doing it with a strictly monetary goal in mind, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. With that same vein, though, and when working with clients in the commercial space, Andrew, maybe you can speak to this with Instagram. How do you feel when a client wants to give creative direction, which is pretty much every client, and they ask for, they say, we're hiring you because we love your aesthetic and we love your eye and your work, but we want you to create this image, and you recognize that as an image that's already been taken 1,000 times. Maybe it's the guy rowing the canoe up on Lake Louise or something like that.
That's cool.
It would be an incredible thing to be there for,
Yeah.
but that image has been created so many times. How do you balance working with clients who want something like that and knowing that you are feeding into that, self-perpetuating loop?
Sure. Well, from my experience, it really, I'd say like when people have hired me on to do something, they haven't usually, like they usually are hiring you for you, not like, hey, that's a sick photo, or like you have good photography, like have you seen this photo of strolls, like can you do something like that, and so if you, like usually most of the time it's like, hey, we really like this photo, and it's like yours, like it's like you, like a space you went to or a zone you like camped at or something, like can you do something similar, or if it's not your work, it's usually never an individual photo, it's usually like a mood board, I'd say. So it's hard to really say because I've never had that experience. I don't know if you guys have, but yeah.
I've definitely had that experience a lot. We were talking earlier, I just shot a job last week, and each frame was sketched, storyboarded, and I was basically there as a tool to take that drawing and make it a photo. It framed exactly the same, talent exactly where it needed to be. And there's jobs like that. It pays my bills. It's how I make a living. So sometimes you kind of have to put your creativity aside and just understand that they can't create the imagery, so you're there to create the imagery. And then other times, like in your case, they come to you and they want your vision and they allow you to do that. And then often they come to you and they say they want your vision, and you get on set and you say, oh, I'd love to frame it and light it this way, and they say, well, actually. And so that becomes a balance. Like if I go to the dentist, I want them to do their job, right? And so you just realize you're just a professional, and you're there with the creative knowledge and the technical knowledge, and this person is your client. So there is this sort of balance you have to walk of pushing back to create your vision, because ultimately they did hire you for that, and then also understanding that they have a job to do and a product to showcase and a vision that they also want to be part of creating. So I think there's a bit of a balance and sometimes a little bit of power and mind games you can play on set to get your way, which sounds super manipulative, but sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
I think it's just the nature of the devil's work of advertising.
100%.
So, Louisa, you mentioned earlier that you feel like these cliche images are actually slowing down the pace of them. Can you talk about maybe starting what inspired you to start You Did Not Sleep There, and how you went from finding content for that handle to the evolution of that, then getting submissions, and now reaching a point where, you went viral?
Yeah, sure. So I was just super naive and had no idea that people would put a tent somewhere where they didn't sleep. And my friend was like, oh, we were on this river trip in the Grand Canyon, and we had some polar tents, weird, and my friend was like, oh, we should put these here and take this photo for polar, and I was like, that is dumb, why would we do that? And he's like, people do that all the time. Then I got home and I started noticing how much people do that and thought it was crazy. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of the accounts. They're kind of both dead now, I think, but You Did Not Skate That or You Did Not Eat That. It's basically like models with skateboards and food. And I thought that was super funny. So I stole that idea and made it my own. And yeah, I have never really like worked in social media. I didn't really know. I have a friend that has a bunch of followers. So I was like, hey, like, what do you do to get these? Like, what are your hashtags? And so I kind of just like cruised around, found that Alex Stroll,
The man.
that guy. Do you know him?
Yeah.
Cool.
I lived with him.
I bet he's great.
He is.
Yeah, so like found people like him, Scott Kranz. Do you know him too?
Yeah, he's nice.
He doesn't like me.
I know. I read your article.
Okay, yeah. He was the first person that ever blocked me, so still
Nice.
waiting for him to unblock.
One day.
I check
I'll
occasionally.
talk to him.
Yeah, so yeah, just started posting them and making funny captions. I think that was like the main thing that I wanted to do, was like make it a little bit unique and not just post photos and call people out, but like be funny about it and be clever about it. And I never thought I would still be doing it. That was like 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago. But yeah, so just cruised around, cruised some hashtags, found some photos, and then it just became kind of the opposite. People would be like, please, will you feature me? I was like, absolutely not. Will not do that. Right?
Why would anyone want to
People
be
still,
featured as
the
looking
last
like
one
an
I
idiot?
posted, the girl was like, thank you so much for the feature. I was like, did you see what this is?
That's super twisted.
Yeah. It's funny, but whatever. But it's people like that, I think. There's so many people. Sorry, I'm going to go off on a tangent that's not answering your question.
Please do.
But there's so many people that are just like mindlessly doing this stuff. Like, so my friend with the followers is like, yeah, you have to comment. Like, that's how you do it. You have to go and you have to comment. And so then you start noticing how many people just comment like, nice feed, or like, love your stuff, or like emojis. And then Instagram actually blocks you when you comment too much. They're like, you are trying to get
I think they
followers.
actually don't count it as engagement unless there's 5 words, and emojis
Who's
don't
they?
count. Instagram.
Really?
Yeah.
Those are bots, dude.
Yeah, like that's crazy.
Yeah.
I would have never thought about bots until this. So yeah, I think that's the, like those people who, like that girl, for example, she was stoked that I posted the photo. She didn't care that it was trying to, I mean, I was calling her out for putting a tent on a rock. She was just excited because 80 whatever thousand people maybe saw it and might click on her. And so it's like, that kind of sucks. Hi.
I have a question for you guys, if I can.
Yeah. I mean, he's the moderator, but yeah.
Sorry,
It's
Graham.
really interesting to hear you guys talk. I'm a content creator for an outdoor brand, and it's really interesting because, like, I feel like it's so oversaturated, and I'm like so sick of looking at pictures like the same, you know, like beautifully lit tent or whatever. And I feel like a lot of other people feel that way too. And I was just wondering if you guys have any thoughts or ideas of how it's going, social media, Instagram is going to change and develop in the future. Like, hopefully to get back to being more authentic. Are we going to start taking pictures of our lattes again? Like,
I think it's like, you know when Pinterest was cool?
right.
Like,
Pinterest is still cool.
now you go on Pinterest and it's like the worst memes and like stupid things that it's like hard to make a cool board if you're trying to like design a room in your house or something. Like that was really an awesome tool to like find some cool ideas and put it together. And now, yeah, and now it's like super basic and boring. And I think it's hard to come back from that. I don't know.
I also think people just absorb Instagram so quickly. Like you watch people and they're just, and they're not, you're barely looking at an image. So I think it's really, it might be hard to come. Like
Yeah.
we've passed that point of no return a
I
little
think
bit.
so. But also, we were talking about this yesterday. Like people eat it up. Like they love it, and I think we're in a unique place because we're like hyper aware. But I think like Jane from Indiana,
Yeah.
you know, is like, oh, this is so awesome. I love all of this stuff. People do this and this is cool. And like, that's what people like. And I think it's the devil's work still. Like, we're still trying to sell stuff and whatever. And so whatever people are into is going to keep happening.
I also think, like you just said, we're far too in it to see it from a reasonable perspective. Because I often get messages, as I'm sure I don't know about you, but Andrew probably does, where people are very inspired by your images and by these trips you go on. And so there's still a lot of that I definitely glaze over now and try to be positive about, because there's a lot of that still.
Yeah, and I think it's important too. Like, I didn't live in Washington or the Pacific Northwest my whole life. Like, I was born in Kentucky. I call it Kentucky. So it's like, you know, and I lived in Ohio and Tennessee.
From Ontario.
Yeah. And it's just like, I mean, Ohio's highest elevation is like 1,400 feet. Like, that's so lame. Like, you know, like, I go to trailheads higher than that. And it's like, when you look at it from that perspective, and like, I really, like, as much as it sucked, I'm like thankful I lived there, because I can see that perspective of people, like they were saying, like, the outside perspective almost, because it's like, I didn't grow up in Washington my whole life. Like, I didn't have a mountain I could like hit with throwing a rock from my backyard. Like, I had like Ohio. Like, it sucks. Like, Ohio's not cool. And so, sorry to everyone who's watching this stream in Ohio, but
Shout out to Ohio.
I'm sorry. Yeah, and so it's you have to always like value and understand that outside perspective too. Yeah.
Well, so then my question to sort of everyone is this just a moment of our sort of niche, our small insular world of working in the outdoor industry, spending time in the outdoors? Are we just witnessing this just going totally mainstream, and is that why we're just seeing so much more of it? And is it not a question of how do we change it? Is it more a question of how do we just accept that, you know, these images that we used to, you know, or that we still do, go on hikes to create and things like that, is it just totally normal to see that on a Chase billboard in Times Square now? And are we just the old man yelling, "Get off my lawn"? Is it something that we just need to accept and say, hey, you know, people are going outside, it's positive. You know, we're going to continue creating our own.
That's what I was going to say.
We're going to continue creating our own art and doing our own thing. You know, where do you feel on that?
I think you just have to tie into what you said earlier. You have to be careful and respectful, and because it's easier and easier to capture images and to share it with everyone, that more people are going to these places. So that's where the damage can be done. But I think the inspirational side of it, and the fact, like, the health trend, being active is super trendy now. That's a great trend. It used to be trendy to, like, a lot of unhealthy things used to be trendy, right? So it's good. Being outdoors is positive, and I think the fact that we get to influence that, and if we're careful about it, can be really good.
For me, it's really exciting too, because I think the more people that get out there and go visit these places, the more they might be from like New York or whatever, like you, and then they go outside and they're like, hey, trees are cool and mountains are cool, and I'm gonna, you know, vote to protect them, which is really important.
From a kind of different perspective, from like a business perspective too, I love the challenge of trying to stand out. Like, as all these people are doing the same things and doing the same like photos and copying your work and copying their work, like it drives me so much as a creative person to be like, okay, like, how the hell am I going to stand out and appeal to this client over here, or those, like, you know, my biggest inspirations? Like, how do I stand out and set myself apart? Yeah, I just love that business challenge and the artistic challenge of, you know, when everyone's doing the same thing, how are you gonna, like, you know, add your little spin to it? I guess.
That's a very optimistic view. I like it.
Yeah, you know, it drives me. I love thinking about that and challenging myself to be like a step ahead of the curve, like, because you have to be if you're gonna like make it, I guess. So.
And to go to different places too. Like,
yeah.
If you are one of those people that post photos of the places that everyone goes to, and you get over it, then maybe you're gonna go find somewhere new.
Yeah.
And that's cool.
Yeah, no, totally. It's also cool. I love the challenge of like being from Portland, like all those places around there, like everyone and their mom goes to, you know, and so like going to those places and like finding your own spin on it. Like, how will you go to Cape Kiwanda and make it different? How will you go to another waterfall and make it different,
Do you find yourself going on trips? We kind of had this conversation earlier. Do you always go on a trip specifically because you know there's going to be a good lookout, or do you just go on a trip because you want to go on a trip and you happen to capture photos of it?
Yeah, no, I've definitely been guilty of that prior, and now it's like, I mean, like there's trips like if like I was going on a little like couple day camping thing, and I just like didn't even bring my camera at some points because I knew everyone was going to be there with a camera. And like I was like, I don't want to try to compete and like get unique shots with this when everyone's gonna be like firing their shutter all the time. Like it's just like, what's the point? I'd rather just enjoy the time, like snap a few iPhone shots and like call it good if it's just gonna be the same stuff as everyone else is getting.
Because I find that interesting with a lot of people and that I've gone on trips with who do that specifically. Like the whole trip is about getting the imagery.
Yeah.
Which can be fun.
Yeah.
But I spend a lot of time.
Personally or for a job?
Personally.
For me,
yeah.
Like a job, if I'm doing portfolio building, but also personally. Like,
yeah. I mean, if I'm getting paid to be on the trip, sure, it's different.
Yeah. No, it really like coming from a standpoint of like you'll be shooting images and like someone will be right behind you like snapping the same one, like stuff like that is just like uncalled for. It's like, what are you trying to do as the person who's standing behind you, capturing the same image as the guy in front of you?
Sorry, I'm kind of asking my own questions.
That's okay.
Please do. I'm out of questions. So.
Another question and sort of thing I battle with personally is when you're creating imagery to go after certain brands.
Sure.
Do you find that I get all up in my head about it tainting kind of where I create from and how authentic my imagery then becomes?
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting...
No, I agree. Like, it's...
Will you reshoot a photo and turn the water bottle around so the logo's in?
Oh, yeah. No, of course, if you're aiming toward, like, client and portfolio work, it's such a hard balance as it be. I'm sure as it's, like, your job. It's just, like, you could go on this sick trip to somewhere, but, like, do you want to bring your camera and, like, shoot in case you get, like, a good, like, portfolio shot? Or do you want to, like, enjoy the trip? Like, that's been my biggest struggle lately, kind of transitioning from the whole Instagram thing to, like, commercial... all this stuff. And like I'll go on trips and like me 2 years ago is I drove down from Seattle to here over the past like few days, and like me 2 years ago would have been like firing off my shot, or like let's go this hour detour to this sick place, like blah blah blah. And now I'm just like it's kind of like it comes from a point of like being jaded by it all, but also being like content with being like enjoying it, like because it's so easy to lose the enjoyment of it, I guess.
Yeah. I don't think
someone's phone's ringing.
I don't know. I don't even know where that is.
It's all good. It'll stop.
I'm just curious, like how, I don't know if you guys deal with it, like my favorite people are clearly paid to post something or about something because they're an influencer and they post it to their personal Instagram, but it's like clearly an ad and it's not like called out as an ad. And I'm just like wondering what you guys think of that. Or I know in like some countries they've made you start to have to like hashtag ad and things like that because it's like really misleading.
Yeah.
When they're like, oh, I love this, and they're paid for it, but like maybe everyone else looking at that doesn't realize that it's an ad.
Yeah.
Or you're paid to go on trips and take pictures and maybe like copy other pictures. And I'm just wondering like if you're posting them to your personal Instagram, if you feel like, I don't know, I mean it's almost like reality TV, where you're like staging something, like making it look like it's real.
We kind of all have our own reality channels now if you look at it that way, and I think that in itself makes it completely inauthentic. So whether we're posting ads that are specifically ads or I'm posting a photo and tagging a couple brands in it and not getting paid, it's still kind of all BS when it comes down to it, or it's the devil's work as you said earlier.
Yeah, I mean, just to backtrack on that, like, you actually legally have to put all that in a caption and declare it's an ad. Like, you look at magazines and you see advertisement, like, legally you have to, so they're, like, literally breaking the law when they don't do that.
It's just, like, not enforced.
I think it's just sort of the evolution of social media being so young and digital, marketing being so young, and in the sense that it's sort of just the Wild West. And I mean, even just, I think 2 weeks ago, or last week maybe, even Instagram just created a whole new tool for sponsored posts, which now you can physically tag the brand, and that brand can okay the image, and then the brand will be able to see the metrics of that image live. Which is really interesting, terrifying. Which also may then cut down on influencers purchasing likes or driving extra engagement to their photo falsely.
Yeah.
So I think that that's definitely a serious topic, and I feel like Instagram is trying to combat that. But at the end of the day, it's just, the Wild West. Like, nobody's going to be able to police it. It's just kind of the integrity of the individual.
Sure. One thing
sadly.
One thing I want to add to that, though, is like, just from a standpoint of like being in it, and like I've definitely done ads before on Instagram. Like I've been paid for ads. Like they're there, but I like, in my opinion, and obviously I have a very biased opinion, I don't know why people get so butthurt about it, because as an artist, as someone else, like 10 years ago, you couldn't support yourself that way. It was such a different field. It's in the past 5 years, really. Like 5 years ago, you couldn't do this, and someone who wanted to be a photographer or a videographer, like they couldn't do a post for X amount of money to support themselves, Like we live in a day and age where like you can literally be contacted by a company because of your work or because of your number. They pay you X amount to advertise on your, public reality channel, kind of, and you can support yourself in your dream. Like, I think that's pretty crazy.
And I think it just is up to you which companies you want to support.
Exactly.
So to tie that into the advertising, I don't think it's wrong if I'm getting paid to post something that I still believe in and want to support. It's when I start to lose my integrity in that respect, and I'm just in it for the money. And you can say the same thing about any public figure or athlete, and it's kind of the same game.
Yeah, I think photographers is like a unique platform for artists, but like there's people like in other verticals that are, like exploiting that position, and like it's inauthentic, like clearly, like
Yeah, they're in it for like the business side of things,
yeah, like,
purely.
But
Sure.
the people will respond, consumers respond.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Once that metric, that data is gone, they're irrelevant, so they can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Right. So the data helps you inform what you're making money off of, and that's what's going to tell you what to do or not.
Yeah.
I had a question on the future. So you don't like people copycatting locations.
Sure.
You don't like when people are unauthentic because you love the outdoors. So creating an experience that you don't really do, and yours the whole foot of just capturing an image when it's ugly on the outside. What are some upcoming cliches? That's what I want to know. Like, what do you guys see there?
Bali.
Bali.
A lot of people are going to Bali now.
Bali's like making a comeback.
Really?
I feel like it was also cool like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm the slowest adopter to trends ever, so I'm the wrong guy to ask. It took me a long time to get Instagram.
Yeah. I don't know, just things that are starting to annoy you, Because, cliches are...
Yeah. I'm not... Yeah.
Actually, just Instagram in general is really annoying to me.
Yeah.
I feel like I have to be on it for some reason. I go long periods of time not being on it or not posting. And I love going on trips, like finding places where I don't have cell service or just not bringing my phone.
Right.
And so I'm working on a couple personal projects that'll be film and will be on extended trips, like a month or two long, with no digital anything. And then you just get back and develop your film and see what you come to.
That's cool.
And that's not really Instagram, but that's, I think, where, I don't know if other people are there, but I'm totally maxed out with my intake of screen time. I just can't handle it. There's a good example right there.
Very popular.
I don't know. I'm hoping we kind of come back to being a little more present and not staring at phones, and being here is great too, because you look around, nobody's on their phone, even though there's one making noise.
Is there another question over here?
Yeah, through all the evil of all of it, do you think though that it's kind of helping to encourage younger generations to be photographing or getting outside? Obviously, we spoke about that, but the actual craft of photography, and even, shooting on your phone is one thing. That's what you have with you, shoot, but just the art of it and actually getting into techniques and things.
I just think, inspiring anyone to get out and create anything is a positive, whether it's on an iPhone, whether it's for Instagram, whether it's for a show. So I think the more that we're all connected, like around the world, and it's so easy, and if it inspires someone from Ohio to get out west or go somewhere beautiful around the world, or I'm from Vancouver Island and there's tons of, I think it's super beautiful there, but I'm biased, but there's a ton of places around the world I see photos of and I think, wow, I should really travel somewhere like that. And so that will inspire me to take photos. And I have a 18-year-old nephew and he's super stoked on my Instagram and his friends. He's from small town Idaho and I get messages from them about how inspiring it is for them. So I think, there's tons of inspiration there, and it's a very positive thing for up-and-coming creatives.
Do you see him actually picking up a camera and trying?
Oh yeah, I'll have week-long Instagram conversations with these kids about like, wow, I want to be a photographer. How do you do that? And I'll kind of share my story with them about assisting, and the whole game has completely changed. I'm like a premature old man, but there's many ways to be successful there, and many different facets. Like you were saying, Instagram's a tiny portion of it.
I think too, it's like in regards to photo and like inspiring kids and people to do that, it's also important. Like I think mine is more switched from like, hey, like get outside more rather than take photos more, and that's why I've been shooting a ton more iPhone lately. Like it's so simple. Like, and even like on like big trips, like you can shoot raw on your iPhone now. You can edit it, you can transport it right into your computer when you're connected to Wi-Fi, and so it's like it's insane. Like it's insane what I've been able to like get out of the thing that's in your pocket. You know, it's like a $900 phone, not even a $900 camera, and it's so like people underestimate it so much. And so just inspiring people like to, you know, instead of spending like $2,500 on a 6D and a 24-70 to go to Iceland and capture that, like, hey, like, no, spend that
Iceland's really hot right now.
Yeah, and you know, spend that $2,500 on the trip. Like, you know, take a helicopter ride. Like, go.
Do you have a discount code for that?
Yeah, Andrew T. Kearns, 15%. You know, just inspiring people to, you know, get out, like, just like experience rather than produce. You know, I think that's like super vital and super like lost, really. So yeah, when I get emails and questions like, hey, like I have a $2,000 budget and I'm going on this trip to X, like where should I go or what should I get? I'm like, no, like, you know, like what iPhone do you have? Upgrade it to like the best iPhone and get a moment lens, like, and go. Like it's so like, yeah.
At the same time too, like, I don't know, I feel like sometimes you go to play, like you go on a hike or a waterfall or whatever, and you see a group of like younger kids. I experienced this recently, and they spend the whole time taking photos of each other, which you of course like roll your eyes and like kind of hate on it in your brain a bit, but then also at the same time it's like that's cool. Like they are expressing themselves creatively and like taking the time to like learn this skill and this trade, and maybe this will like be a passion of theirs, and they'll do a lot of cool stuff, and it has to start somewhere. And if that's taking selfies because you get likes, like, okay. Just, it's hard to not like.
It's way easier to be a hater.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, I am a very good example of that.
Are there any other questions here?
Yeah, so I have a question. Like, as a brand, from a brand's perspective, we're super young on babies. We've been around for 2 years, and Instagram has like helped us explode. Like I was talking with someone on the way up here, like a big order for us was like 700 last year, and now we're like in REI, and mostly because of our exposure on Instagram. But as content, we're just like inundated by content every single day, and not in our brains. How do we? It's obviously still influencing us, like in very impactful ways. Like our country is a prime example of that. But how, as we are like clogged with Instagram and social media, how do we find other tools, or are there examples of tools that you guys know of that we can be using as brands to push ourselves forward?
We're gonna have to invoice you for the answer.
I don't know much from the brand perspective on things, but were you saying kind of too, you're just trying to like get tools and like content to put out for your brand?
I guess like, well, both. Like,
yeah.
Obviously, good content is important.
Sure.
But other than that, like, are there other tools that we can be like more original as brand?
Are you
like outside of Instagram?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Vine? Have you ever heard of Vine?
MySpace is a really good one.
MySpace.
I'm the wrong guy to answer that.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
I'm just
I
gonna
wish
step
I could
out of
help
that.
you. Yeah.
Pinterest.
I feel like you might know back there. We were chatting earlier. You.
Is anyone developing the next hot app?
Yeah.
I mean, what's interesting is you see the pivoting what LinkedIn's doing, you know, post-acquisition by Microsoft, and now they're really getting into creating stories and content. A good buddy of mine's VP of product there, and they just launched out videos. And so people are now trying to figure out, how do you tell a video in this medium of business-minded folks? right? And so look at this experience that these guys made. And so you see LinkedIn, and if you can get other people who are creating businesses or have the same questions as you and put a great piece of content out there that shows how you're delivering this experience to your consumers during this economy of experiences, that's a great medium, I feel, of the future, right? So people now want human touch more than ever. And so LinkedIn's trying to find a way of telling that story. But also you're seeing this evolution of magazines coming out there, like Airbnb pivoting to trips and to experiences to monetizing people, and then Airbnb creating a magazine out there too. And people now wanting to have magazines, very cliche, on their coffee to show that I consume this magazine because now that's cool again. You know?
And tangible, right? Like the human experience
right,
is tangible, and therefore tangible products as well.
Yeah. So I would say, don't be shy of LinkedIn. Like, figure out what other people, because just because you're an executive somewhere doesn't mean you're not buying something, right?
Yeah. I never thought LinkedIn would be that relevant in that realm, which is neat to hear.
Yeah,
do you want to spot on this bench up here?
No,
You're doing great. No,
we were chatting earlier, and I was like, I should probably swap spots with this guy.
Yeah. There's room for four.
So, but that's it. That's what I would say.
Well, real quick, speaking of experiences, we are actually just open to people who attended the panel, and I guess if you have friends here that aren't here, first shame them for not coming to this.
Yes.
But secondary, we're actually going to be doing a nighttime photography workshop with representatives from B&H who are going to be helping show you how to shoot awesome night sky photos and actually try and create some cliche images yourself, as well as tomorrow morning we'll do a sunrise. So the sunrise workshop tomorrow is at 6 a.m. and tonight we're going to be meeting at 7:30 over by the stage. And so it's open to anybody. Bring your cameras, tripod if you have one tonight, and then we're going to, help you learn how to shoot some of these amazing photos, and then you post them on Instagram. Whoever makes the worst/best image will give away a gift certificate to B&H for $250. So, and that's going to be open for like next week or so. But just throwing that out there before everyone trickles off, as I know we're getting close on time. But we can take some more questions if there are them.
No, I mean, I was just going to add something to what he was saying. It's essentially like, there's so many tools out there, right? And like Instagram, Facebook, all of these different things, even like Reddit, right? Like, how are you value added to your customer, and how can you leverage that tool in a way that maybe your competitors are not? So if you look at that as your customers almost as citizens, not just someone that's going to pull out their wallet, then I think you can find new ways and opportunity to communicate. And also try to look for things that are not as crowded. It's still very early, but Snapchat's pretty compelling. Because not a lot of people are on it, they're still in beta. So we can fill top of funnel by, well, their ad platform's still in beta. It's still very new, but it's you can drive a lot of traffic, and so there are people that may not be aware of who you are and what you do. And it's short form content, so it's a good way to tell a quick story.
Yeah, question for one of you guys. For brands, what do you guys think, and for your personal brands, do you guys implement the use of like live video, and what kind of feedback have you gotten from your audience in regards to live video? Or if you bring on like a client who's like, hey, we want to do some live video on Instagram.
I definitely don't do any of that. That's not my thing.
Yeah, I did it like when it first came out, the live video stuff, and it was like cool, but I don't think I've done it for like months now. But it's cool to engage and like talk and like be like, hey guys, I'm like popping in like for the next 30 minutes, like Q&A, like ask away and just like answer the questions and stuff like that. So, I mean, I can't really speak relative to like how it helps me at all, or like how if it gives me any benefit, but I noticed like a lot of the younger people and like the up and coming people are like doing it a lot. So I think it has some benefit for sure.
I think it'd be a really nice way to connect with the people that are viewing your images, and I'm like weirdly antisocial with that and almost never post pictures of myself, and I'm not that transparent in that respect. I won't post where I am when I'm actually there, but I'll do it later. So I think there's a lot more people who are far more open than I am online, but I kind of would rather not be online, but then I'd have no friends, so it's like this weird thing. I'm sure it's very valuable though.
Yeah, speaking from the publishing world, I think that anyone who is in that as well is seeing that video is like trending super hard, and everyone is trying to create video content, whether that's actually embedded on your site or using Instagram, things like that. So I think it definitely is trending upwards, and it's going to become, more important. On the other side of that, though, I think clients and a lot of people don't quite understand how expensive producing video can be. So that's just an interesting, a whole other conversation, is just, as these things evolve, just trying to see how you can leverage or balance the value of something versus the cost of production, which is kind of the beauty of Instagram to begin with.
Do any of you three have Facebook? Just curious.
Like personally?
Oh, that's interesting, right? Because, yeah.
Yeah, Facebook.
I write messages sometimes to friends, but that's about it.
I do, but I haven't been on it in months.
I go on it.
It's
Why?
interesting. Yours is, I was just good because Facebook owns Instagram, and I feel a lot of people, right, when you go, yeah, they own, yeah. So when you see, like I was telling him, I left Facebook because it was allowing me to have content points of view of people I didn't want to get, and Instagram was just this way to pause, right, and look at beautiful imagery, like Surfline and you guys and stuff like that. So it's interesting. I just want people to talk about social media, and we talk about this medium of imagery, and then we talk about Facebook as sort of a content realm. And I didn't know if you guys put any imagery on Facebook or if you use it as a different medium.
I basically use it as an email thing. Yeah, and I don't even like to, but people still write me on it. I'm like, can you just email me? Yeah. But I don't remember the last time I scrolled through the wall or whatever it's called.
I feel like the Facebook newsfeed is like the tabloids. Yeah. It's like Us Weekly. You just like go on there and you're like, oh, she had a kid, cool. Like,
or it's a way to figure out who you went to high school with or in your family is a Republican.
Yeah, I don't have that.
So you guys
lots of room in Canada.
On Facebook?
I don't really. I know there's a lot of benefit to it, and I know people have been pushing like Facebook a lot more lately for their business, but I've yet to jump on that train. Do you have any experience with it? I'm just curious, like business-wise.
Yeah, with Facebook?
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot.
What's the? I'm just curious, like what are the benefits that you're gaining from it?
No, not me as a brand. So I sell technology to brands who monetize. So I work for Adobe, and they monetize via Instagram and Facebook. So they have different ways of placing different imagery into different audiences, because you can customize your targeting very well. So I mean, I see people tell stories. So people do stories through
like Facebook stories.
No, like they'll tell a story through more types of content. Versus Instagram, it's just a story that's being told through images. Like people don't really write a lot of content on there, right?
It's less
It's
more newsy.
It's more newsy, right? So people just use it differently. So when you want to tell like your backstory of maybe why you found a place, or how to discover places, or what type of images or what type of photography talent you took. That tends to be more of something that people use through Facebook.
And is this geared more toward a business profile on Facebook versus a personal?
Well, so that was my question to you guys, because you are your own business, right? It's different. Whereas brands, like her brand, is a product. Mm-hmm. Your product is your output of an image, right? Yeah. So it's an interesting Venn that just crosses over. And I didn't know if you guys.
I think it also depends. Like to go back to me being more of a commercial photographer, I have an agent. And she gets me work. And it's like, I really could give two shits about Instagram and Facebook. And I'm very fortunate about that. And I kind of leverage Instagram just to go to things I'm interested in and meet interesting people. But I don't really make money off of it, and I have no need to or no intention of it. So I think
it's great. I just wanted to hear that answer is yes, because I like that. Right? And you use it as a personal versus your brand is on Instagram, right? And Facebook is a personal thing, so that's good.
It's definitely, like, from my perspective, and I might be completely wrong, but, like, Facebook, like, Instagram is public. Like, if your account's off private, like, anyone can add you and follow you. But, like, Facebook, for me, it's like, if you have 500 friends on Facebook and you create a business page, like, at the start of that business page, I might be wrong, but your outreach is those 500 people in your friend realm, and then they might like reblog, what is it, repost, like retweet one of your Facebook things, and it might like spread your share. Thank you.
We are experts. It says a lot about our Facebook engagement.
I like it.
And so to me, it seems like it's kind of the same thing as Instagram stories and Snapchat. Like Snapchat was very there was a lot of value in Snapchat because it was very private, and so every time someone added you, they actually had to type in like Andrew T. Kearns to add me on Snapchat, you know, versus like Instagram, it was like boom, like everything was so public instantly, you know, and so there's like a lot of, it's like just, it's perceived value in that, you know, and so my perceived value of Facebook would be like, here's my number of friends that I can only outreach like, you know, like 800 or 1,000 or whatever it was, is you know, and I can reach like 500,000 on Instagram, and now that it's like a business, or now they have all these business tools, so we can go beyond that, you know, so, I mean, I personally haven't seen the value in Facebook, but I also have no idea what I'm talking about too, so.
Well, on that note,
yeah.
I think we have to wrap up, but obviously we're all going to be hanging around, so come talk to us later if you want. But just another reminder, if you do want to come out and join the workshops, again, tonight at 7:30 we're going to meet over by the stage, and then tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. So come out, it'll be fun.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank
Girls.
you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.